Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Seamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me?
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys. All right. Well, if you're listening, our hot takes episode didn't push you away from our future episodes.
That is a good point. This is following our hot takes episode.
This
so
is
hope
following.
You're still here.
Oh my God, I'm losing track of days. This is Tuesday. This is our wait times over or under episode. So we're going to be going through all the houses, picking a number minute-wise or hours or whatever time-wise, and we're just going to talk about if we think it's going to be on average over or under that time frame. If you've been sticking along with this week-long venture, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening along. It's been super fun releasing all these episodes at day after day after day after day after day, but it makes the time go by a lot quicker, and we are that much closer to Halloween Horror Nights. So I do have a beer. It does not have anything to do with over or under, other than the fact that it is over its time sitting in my fridge and I need to get rid of it. This is from Angry Chair Brewing and Untitled Chapter. Yep, it is the Loaded French Toast Imperial Stout.
I've had that one before. That was pretty good.
This thing is beefy. It's 11%.
Yeah, it smells like a plate of French toast covered in like syrup.
I think I've had it. I might have gotten a couple, and this was just like the last soldier standing. But Imperial Stout with maple syrup, cinnamon, and milk sugar, and it's brewed and canned by, like I said, Untitled Art and Angry Chair Brewing up in Wisconsin, Waunakee, Wisconsin. I want to say
sounds about right.
But it's Waunakee, one of those things. But super cool can art. Like I said, it's really just the matter of fact that it just needs to get out of my fridge. So let's crack this bad boy.
Woo! And I'm drinking a beer tonight, finally. So,
what we got?
Nothing special. It's Coors Light, but
it
is under the typical ABV that I would usually drink. So
there we go. We tied them both in. We always find a way. All right, so I got a list in front of me. So these are in no apparent order. Actually, no. I think this order I'm reading them in was from when they were released. So once they were official. So we'll just go and we'll start from this. We'll go from Universal Monsters Legends Collide. Now, if I had to guess a number to average this, I'd probably stick it right at the hour mark. Probably 60 minutes is a good debating standpoint.
Yeah, so the question would be first. 60 minutes seems roughly good for that one. But the question would be: Are we going on numbers on their let's say on the busiest night at the park, or are we talking just on an average night?
I think an overall average. I think on busy nights we can expect them to go up, and obviously on some slower nights we can expect to go down. So we'll talk average night, and then I think what would be fun at the end of each house, if we think we say what we think will be the wait times for opening night. Because
we could do that.
Opening night is it's weird. It's tricky. Obviously, there's a lot of fanfare and a lot of the locals are there, but it's not necessarily one of the busiest nights. This weekend might not coincide with the past because as of this recording, Sunday night is sold out. So it is starting, which is weird that Friday and Saturday didn't sell out, but Sunday did. So I don't understand that aspect of it. Obviously, there's a lot of people there, but I feel like you get those true fans that travel, but a lot of the other people that have already pre-booked all their stuff in advance might not have booked for specifically opening weekend, but
And it could be that
I could
people
be
just
wrong.
assumed that, oh, well, let's go Sunday because Sunday won't be as bad as,
Yeah.
Friday or Saturday. But it turns out Friday and Saturday will be worse than Sunday. So,
Oh yeah,
and it is Labor Day weekend too. So
that
like
is
Monday
right.
is off for people. So
Yep.
that's also another reason why Sunday can be busy.
Yeah. So Universal Monsters Legends Collide, I think 60 minutes is a good average thing. Are you going to take the over or under on that? Do you think this will be over 60 minutes on average or under 60 minutes?
On an average night, honestly, I'm probably going to go over.
Mhm.
I think it's going to be closer to 90 minutes, not a ton over. And again, I think honestly 90 is probably going to be the upper for most of these, as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned, or as far as my thought is.
Mhm.
I don't think it'll be much higher than that for pretty much any house, but I think this is going to have probably one of the longer waits.
Yeah.
Like I said before, there isn't really that huge IP draw, and obviously Halloween is, but I think that these Universal ones have garnered quite a following over the last couple of years, and I think that this one is only going to increase that, or not, maybe
Mhm.
not increase it, but it's only going to kind of follow the same pattern. And I think last year on some of the busier nights, that house, was it reached peaks of about 90 minutes, I think, but.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with you on the over on this. I think there will be nights where you see it at that 45-minute mark. But I think on average, it'll sit right around. I mean, if I could pick even, I would stick at that 60, but I'll go over because I think it'll be in that 70 to 75-minute mark.
Well, we can say
These
even
have
too. I
been.
mean, I
Yeah,
think
I'll
even.
save
I
that.
think
I'll save that for another one.
okay.
I'll put that in the bank. Because I do think it will, on average, probably reach that 70, 75, but it's going to be right around that 60-minute mark, I'd have to say. On busy nights, maybe 90. But I think the Universal Monsters houses in the past have kind of built this up a little bit. Now, it's tough gauging off of last year because the Universal Monster Bride of Frankenstein house had been open the year previously, so it did suffer a little bit from all the returning people. The locals, that wasn't. It was a beloved house, but it wasn't one that we necessarily need to go to as often because we had already seen it a handful of times. So it was the wait times dragged a little bit because
Yeah,
of
and I
that.
think that was the one that was with the queues in front of the stage, right? So like
Correct.
that. I mean, that queue never really wrapped a ton around the stage area. Like you got in there pretty quickly. If I
Yeah,
remember
and I
correctly.
remember houses of the past that have been there. That's been like the big house you
Yeah,
want
well,
to put there.
Ghostbusters on the busiest nights, I remember
Yep.
Ghostbusters being really long, a pretty long wait. So
And I believe that's where Stranger Things was, and I remember waiting like in the queue, like actually having to file through and like wait in line inside of that snake queue. But this year you didn't really see that up front.
right.
All right, wow, this beer is good. On a side note too, I'm not sure when the episode is coming out, but the episode that I jumped in with the Catacombs, RIP, HHN365, all of them. I did catch some flack for how low we ranked Universal Monsters. I did
Did
stick.
you?
I did. We were
Oh boy.
towards the bottom, and we might have ruffled some feathers over there. But
Listen.
don't worry. I totally threw you under the bus.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll take it. Come on, come find me. Find me. Change my mind.
No, but it was fun. So, if you're hearing this before that episode comes out, we will be posting it and sharing it so you can listen to us on our on one of our friends' podcasts as well, with a bunch of the other Halloween Horror Nights content creators from the area. Fun time. We did a ultimate hype list of sorts, and it was just an interesting turn where we people differed on all kinds of different things. So it was a fun collab. So moving along from Universal Monsters, we're going to go into Halloween, which is at Soundstage 23. Halloween. Do you want to pick an over under number on this one? We'll alternate and kind of go from there.
Yeah, this one I'm gonna go 90 on this one, and we'll kind of start at that number. I think this one on I know that we're talking averages, but I think that this one overall is going to average the longest wait. Because again, like I said, it isn't necessarily like IPs in the past where you had kind of like recent IPs that were really kind of on the back of people or the front of people's minds. like Stranger Things and that sort of thing, or
Mhm.
Hill House. But I think with this one, I think that Halloween is still such a strong IP, and obviously it's classic, so it's still going to draw the most people. Especially, I think this is up, like you said, this is up on one of the sound stages, so
Sounds-
it's up close, right? I don't know which queue it's going to be, but I would expect that this one's going to probably be right around 90 minutes. Now I'll let you kind of give me an over under, and I'll tell you whether I think that it will stay above 90 or if it will maybe hover a little bit lower.
I think because of the points you put, I'm gonna hit the over on that as well. I
Okay.
think because of it's definitely the top of the IPs, the actual IPs. The Weekend, he's kind of like a mixture. That house is a mixture, I'd
Yeah.
say. But this is like a tried and true IP. We know what we're getting, and in a year where it is primarily originals, I'm thinking a lot of the casual HHN fans that don't necessarily care about Fiesta de Chupacabras or Bugs Eaten Alive. I don't they go for those. What big movie am I going to see this year? So I think a lot of that crowd that comes in is going to gravitate towards the Halloween, the Universal Monsters, the Blumhouse. So I think that's going to drive it up. Plus, being HHN31, being the original Halloween, it has been a while since we've seen it. It's the first time this is in a soundstage. It'll be really fun to revisit Haddonfield, and I think that 90, again, like we said, there are outliers. There's going to be slow nights when it's under. There's going to be high nights when it's over. But I'm going to take the over on average. I think 90. I think it sits right around 90.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. And like I said, that's why I think even's a good one, because I don't think it'll go much higher than 90. Probably on the busiest nights, I could see it. I can honestly see it like on a busy Saturday, like potentially even this Saturday. It could at the upper reaches potentially come close to touching 120 minutes, like 2 hours, but
Yeah.
it won't stay there. I don't think that'll only happen every once in a while, but I think right around 90 minutes is where we're going to kind of see it hovering for the most part.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see it on the busier nights reaching close to 120. So I would go upper on it as well.
All right. So I'll jump into Horrors of Blumhouse. This is at the Fast and Furious locations. The house has not been there in a little while, so it's kind of cool seeing it back in this area. Again, being an IP in a very not IP heavy year, I think is going to help this house a lot more than it would if there was two other IPs that were above it. I think I will set the over under at 50 minutes for Horrors of Blumhouse. What do you think about where are you
I'm
going to
actually
go
going to go
over?
I'm going to go with the under.
Okay.
You're right. It is an IP house. It is an IP starved event. There isn't a lot. There obviously isn't as many IPs as there are originals, and a lot of and basically the 4 IPs at this one. We've said it before. I don't think the IPs are as strong at this event as they have been in the past. Both from ones that I've been to, plus ones that I've kind of just read about and watched videos on. So I think that even though it is kind of a starved event when it comes to IPs, I don't think these 2 IPs are strong enough to necessarily warrant. No, not warrant. That's a bad word. Like I just don't think it's going to be over an hour for this, or close to an hour. I think it's actually going to probably hover around 35-40 minutes. So slightly under your gauge of your guess at 50. And just because I think that people will do it once, and maybe on the busier nights it'll go over 60, potentially touch 90 minutes. I think on a busy night. But I think once people do it once, I think that's probably like the last time they'll do it. They'll probably do this house one time, experience it, take it or leave it. But at that point, they may not go back to it. Now, I'm not saying that it isn't possible that I could be completely wrong, and this could be one of the better houses, and people do this one over and over again, and it keeps the wait time, up there. But I just have a feeling that this one's probably going to be pretty low compared. It'll be the lowest of the 4 IPs.
Yeah, I set that number so I could hit an under as well. So I was going to say under. I had this in my mind as like that 45-minute mark. I think that's where it will tend to linger. Again, like you said, most nights will go up, some nights will go down, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I think with the originals being so strong, this is like the flip side of Halloween. Halloween is a tried and true IP. People know what they're going to get. The Horrors of Blumhouse, I don't know how much of the general public that are like there for they're to check off the box of the spooky season trips. I don't know how well known they're going to know Freaky or the Black Phone. Not to say they're underground movies by any stretch of the imagination, but Michael Myers is Michael Myers, and then Vince Vaughn from Freaky is Vince Vaughn from Freaky. So like it's just I don't know if it's going to have that overall appeal to random people. Now they are marketing it very well. They did put out a really cool Horrors of Blumhouse t-shirt. So I mean, maybe it surprises me. Maybe people know the Blumhouse name and they're not going to care what movies it's on, whether they've seen it or not. But I think that 45-minute mark is where I'm going to settle on for the Horrors of Blumhouse.
Okay.
So next up is the Weekend After Hours Nightmare. So this is over in the Second Parade Warehouse. So this will be a fun one for you. Where are you going to gauge this one off, you think?
I'm actually going to surprise you.
Okay.
I'm going to start this one off at 45 minutes. Average.
Okay. All right.
I'll let you kind of give your opinion, and then I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
I'm going to hit the over. I'm going to say,
so, yeah.
I think this will be like 90 minutes on average. I think much like that Halloween, that 90-minute average where it reaches 2 hours on some nights. I think that this is going to be, I think we're going to see a lot of people coming. I don't know if they're going to specifically come for the weekend. Some might, but I think a lot of people are excited about this house. I think this is going to surprise us. Like I said, I'm kind of talking myself into it a little bit. I've said multiple times. I've said multiple times. I'm curious about this house. I'm not excited, but the curiosity is getting close, and maybe it's because we're so close to the event. I do feel like this house, there's not going to be a middle ground. It's either going to be very good or very bad. So I'm hoping for the very good aspect of it, because I don't want to wish ill upon any house. But I do think this one will be bizarre and just completely not what people anticipated. So I'll hit the over. I think it'll be around 90 minutes on average.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with you that I think that it's probably going to surprise a lot of people. I'm obviously a little bit more hyped on it than I think you are. We've discussed that. Mm-hmm. So we obviously know that we're a little bit different as far as whether we're looking forward to it or not, or at least in a certain way. I mean, obviously you are, but just not in the same way that I am. Like, I'm looking at it as a fan of his music. I'm looking at it as I'm excited to see what they do with the album that they're, referencing in this house. You, on the other hand, is more of like I'm interested to see what they do with it, because I need to know that like there's something they could pull from it, and whether or not it's good or bad is obviously pretty subjective. So, some people may think it's going to be great. Some people think it's going to be bad, and it could be good or bad depending on those opinions or biases going into it. Mm-hmm. My thought is that, yes, I think that maybe on certain nights it could average as high as 90 minutes. But the reason why I'm hesitant to necessarily go all in on that number is because I think that this house, for better or worse, is still pretty polarizing, in the sense that there are a number of people that are going to go that will either not outright refuse to go through it, just aren't going to be that interested to actually wait in line for it. So I think because of that, I think there's going to be some sort of, like, I don't want to call it phenomenon, but like it'll be some sort of effect on it where the wait times will actually be pretty low, because not everybody's going to want to go through it, because they're just immediately
silent protest
in the house. Because not even so much a silent protest. It's just like, I don't like the fact that he's got a house. I know it's not going to be good, so I'm not going to wait in line and go mm-hmm. through it. And I'm not saying that everybody will be like that, because everybody mm-hmm. thinks that I don't want people to think that, like, I'm saying that if you have reservations about this particular house, that means you're not going to do it. I know that a lot of people will go through it, and are much like you, in the sense that, like, you're not super hyped on it, but you're going to be willing to give it a chance. But I think there's enough people that aren't going to be willing to give it a chance and just not bother waiting in it. So I put 45. I don't want to be cheap and say even. So I think that it potentially could be under it. I have a feeling this could average 30 to 35 minutes.
Wow.
On most nights. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but I just have a feeling this house is going to be one of those houses where it's going to be good, but I just don't know if everybody's going to think that, and everyone's going to agree with that, and because of that, the wait times will, I don't want to say suffer, because obviously it's better for us because there's less people to wait
right.
time with, but I mean, wait times or experiences might suffer a little bit because people aren't waiting for it, if it makes any sense. So I know it's a little bit of a surprise for everybody, but I just don't know if it's going to be the typical everyone's waiting for this particular house, especially since it's going up against Halloween, and even the Blumhouse house.
Yeah. So Spirits of the Coven, Soundstage 22. This is going to be towards the front of the park. So now we're getting into these originals where it's a little bit harder to anticipate what, like, on average these things are going to sit at. So for Spirits of the Coven, I will set this at 60 minutes. And what do you think? Do you think this reaches that 60 on average? Do you think it goes over?
I'm going to go under on this one.
Okay.
I think this one's probably going to be closer to that 45 minute mark on average. I mean, and again, I think it's because this one's kind of got the it's kind of got the case files effect, in the sense that it sounds cool. Like, I guess a little, it sounds pretty cool, but we really don't know what it's going to be. I mean, obviously it's about witches, but I just don't think that it's necessarily like your standard, spooky witches cooking stuff up in a pot type thing. I think it's like,
flapper, speakeasy.
It's gonna be different, and I think that, again, this is also kind of like you said with the Weekend House. This is going to be one of those. It's either going to be really, really good and blow everybody away, or it's going to be meh. That was okay, but it wasn't, great. And I think that I'm still leaning more towards the fact that I think this one's going to disappoint me a little bit.
Yeah,
and it might disappoint other people. And I think because of that, the numbers, the wait times won't be as big for this one.
Yeah,
because again, it's going up against stronger originals as far as I can tell so far, without actually having done it.
Yeah. I think that for Spirits of the Coven, I'm going to go on to, I think I'm going to break even on this one. I think I'll stick right on that 60-minute mark. I think it will dance under. I think it'll dance over. I feel like the front of the park, much like Case Files, Killer Clowns, not that they're necessarily in the same area house-wise, but they never seem to be those heavy hitters. Maybe this year they lure people in being right up front. If anyone that's not doing Stay and Scream and going right through the main gates, they can just jump right in line into that one. But being that it's very Halloween heavy, the witch aspect is intriguing. I'll be curious if people on the outside of the HHN world, people that aren't listening to podcasts, I wonder if they will understand the true story, judging just from the title before they go into the line. So Spirits of the Coven, they might just think traditional witches, and they might head in for that. Whereas once they get in, it's going to be like a completely different scenario.
Agreed.
So we'll move on now to Bugs Eaten Alive. That's going to be Sprung Tent number 2. And I'll let you. Is this me or you for time? I think it's me.
No, you just did. You just did the.
Oh, I did Spirits. So you get Bugs Eaten Alive. That's
I get.
How apropos is that?
So I'm actually going to go 90 on this one, and I'll let you kind of determine what you think it's going to be. But I'm kind of, like I said, like in our hype episode, I'm not super thrilled by it. But I am hyped, and I can see why people would be hyped. And I think it's different than what we've seen before in the past. And I think because of that, it's going to affect how long people are willing to wait for this one.
Yeah. All right. So Bugs Eaten Alive. I think that this will go probably. Oh man. I'm guessing around 45 minutes. So I think I'm going to have to take the under on that one. This feels like those, maybe it turns into the puppet theater of last year, like the little engine that could, not, the most anticipated, just kind of a ridiculous out there concept. And maybe later on in the season, it picks up steam and really, really catches wind. But I think I'll hit the under. I'm going to stick around that 45, maybe 50-minute mark. But that's where I'm going to probably end up on the Bugs Eaten Alive.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I still think that it's It's one of those ones that is going to be relatively unique. I think it's going to be surprisingly well done, and it's going to be weird and freaky and gross. And I think people are going to be super about that.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's just going to drive the wait times of this one up. I think this is one of those originals that will rival. I mean, I'm already kind of calling Dead Man's Wake, like I said before, as like potentially the, or what is
The darling of the
yeah. I feel like this is going to be that preseason best house winner before it even starts. So I think that
number one pick.
Yeah, but I think besides that, I think the Bugs Eaten Alive house is potentially going to push it, kind of like Puppet Theater was. If you think about it, like last year, everybody assumed that Wicked Growth was just by default going to be the best house of the year, and it probably was. But Puppet Theater gave it a run for its money, and I think that this Bugs Eaten Alive one, people are sleeping a little bit on it. I think. And that could just be me, like just judging based on what I've seen. But like I think that people are sleeping on it a little bit, just because it's going to really eat at that. No pun intended. Eat at the innate fears a lot of people have. Like I've said before of bugs. So I think that it's just a natural phobia that people have that's going to make this house unbelievably effective, because you're already going to be creeped out ahead of time going into it. And you're just going to be on edge the whole time, and it's just going to make it a really cool experience, or a much better experience than you typically get in most houses. So I think it'll surprise everybody. I think people are going to be waiting in line for this one, because I think people are going to want to do it. So I'm going to probably say stay right around the 90 minutes. And obviously on a slower nights it'll come down, but I think on an average busy night, I think it'll be close to 90 minutes.
Yeah. All right. So next up is Fiesta de Chupacabras. Soundstage 24. This one. So I think this is a tough one to gauge too. I'm going to sit this at 45 minutes. And we'll see what you say for your over under. I still got a debate on mine. Yep.
I'm going to go over on it, but not by much. I think this will be right around 60 minutes on a busy night. I think that obviously, like we talked about before, this is kind of that Yeti house, so it's going to be a little different. It's not your average theme most people think of when you think of haunted house. I think that because of that, the unknown, people aren't going to be as wild about it to begin with, but I think people are going to experience it. It's going to be really done really well, and it's going to have a pretty good following, but I just don't think it's going to garner the amount of weight that other houses might get. And I think part of it too is people going in for one, maybe 2 nights, who know they're not going to be able to do everything, or every house, so they're going to pick and choose certain ones. And I don't know if this would necessarily be one of the ones everybody chooses to go through, just because it's a little bit unknown. People don't really know what they're getting into, other than the fact, like what the Chupacabra legend is. But even then, like, not everybody really understands that, and even I don't quite fully understand it. As far as I know, it's like a demon thing that eats goats. That's what I it's definitely it's a unique theme. So I don't know if everybody is going to run to that immediately. I mean, I think that everyone will try it potentially once, but I think there's going to be people that choose to skip that one because they've only got so much time, and there's bigger the IPs they want to go through. Maybe a couple of the bigger originals that everybody's talking about. So, yeah. So I'm going to say probably 50 to 55 minutes is probably where it's going to sit.
All right. On this one, I will go over. I think it'll probably hit that 60-minute mark. I think it'll dance right around 60, maybe 70. But it's tough to say. It really is. There's a couple other ones that I think, like the point you brought up of people not being able to hit everything. I think a couple of the ones we haven't talked about yet might fall more in that because they are more vague. And I think this is going to create like a little cult following, so to speak. I think this will be a house that ends up being almost a favorite. I do see Spirits of the Coven having like a following and Bugs Eaten Alive, people liking it. But I think this one in particular is going to be like the fan favorite of the locals. I think this is going to be almost not like not necessarily a meme house, but I think it's going to catch that notoriety where people just kind of fall in love with this house. I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it's just the colorful Fiesta aspect of it taking place in a Latin American village. I think that the community is going to kind of get behind it and turn it into that little, like I said, the little engine that could, so to speak.
Yeah, I
So
can see
next,
that. I can see that. I would concede that that's a possibility. Yeah.
yeah. Next up is Hellblock Horror. This is in Soundstage 23. So
This
where
is
do you
me.
think this is going to be at?
I'm gonna put
Yeah.
this one at 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. That was kind of what I had. You know what? I'm going to use my break even. I'm going to say
Okay.
yes, 30 minutes on average. This is one of those two real vague mystery houses that, like all the other ones, Spirits of the Coven. Okay, we know it's witches. Bugs eaten alive, we know it's bugs. Chupacabra, we know it's chupacabras. Hellblock Horror is just like a hodgepodge mix match in a prison, all that stuff. So it's really, really obscure. So I think this one will fall to the bottom of people's lists of if they are on there with strapped time and they aren't doing RIP tour and they aren't doing Express Pass. This might be one that they look over. I think this will kind of be like the Tooth Fairy of last year. Now I know Tooth Fairy was open the year previous, and that's what also hurt it a little bit. But I think that this will fall in that category where it's just like that was a fun house. I don't know if I need to go do it again.
Yeah,
But-
I would agree. I cheated a little bit. I gave you 30 because I actually am going to go slightly under. I do
Okay.
think that this will be that house that's kind of like the walk on, quote unquote, like that
Yeah.
ride that everybody can kind of just walk on. I think this is going to be that walk, like just that walk on house. There's always one or two houses every year where there's never a line for it. And if
Mhm.
there is, it's never very long. Now, obviously, on the busiest nights of the year, it's going to have a little bit of a wait. Like they all
Yeah.
do, but comparatively speaking, it's not going to be as long as everything else. So I think this one on a dead night, you're going to be able to walk right into this one with very minimal wait. So I'm going to say average, probably. You're going to think I'm crazy. Probably 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
just think, huh?
I said, "Oh wow."
Yeah, and I just think that it's because this one it's obviously the house that they had to kind of come up with something last minute. So I don't think that, and I'm not trying to say that Universal is going to do a bad job with it. But what I'm saying is that it's
Yeah.
going to feel rushed. It's not going to feel as well thought out, and I think that it's the thing that they had to suffer through because of the fact that they lost what they were planning initially.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't help it. And I think that if it is just kind of like a a who's who of retro characters or whatever it ends up being, if it's just basic inmates, undead inmates, or whatever it ends up being, I just think that people may either skip it entirely or just not like it enough to want to do it more than once. And this could be, to be honest with you, for me, like it's that 1-2 houses that I do one time and never do it again because it doesn't really like capture my attention like the others do, but who knows? But yeah, I'm going to say that on an average night, it's just going to hover right around 20-25 minutes, maybe even less.
Yeah. So next up, the big boy, Dead Man's Pier Winter's Wake.
Yeah, save this one for yourself because I want to see what you say.
24. I will set the mark at 90 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. It's right around where I'm thinking. I'm actually going to give you slightly over.
Okay.
I think I'm already forgetting. I think I said like Halloween will be about 90 minutes and could potentially touch 120. I think this one's definitely going to touch 120 on the busiest nights. So 90 minutes is a good place to start. I think this is probably going to be closer to 100 minutes on average. I think, like I said before, this is going to be the king of like you said, the darling of the event. This is going to be the one that everybody talks about. This is going to be the one that everybody looks at them and go, "Oh, why did it take you so long to do a house based on this theme? It's so good."
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just like I said it before. I'm calling it now. This is going to be the best house of the event. This is going to be voted the best house of the event. And I think the wait times are going to reflect it. I think people are going to go, do certain houses, but once you get through that initial few nights or a couple weekends, and things have kind of settled where they are, and people kind of know what is the better houses, people are going to focus more on on this one, Halloween, and maybe a couple other originals. So that's going to make this wait time go up a little bit. So I think 90 is a good place to start, but like I said before, I'm going to go slightly over.
I too am going to hit the over. I think compared to the majority of the other originals, I think this is at the top of people's list for originals. This has been a want from me in particular for a while, but I think the community as a whole has really, I don't know if everyone's been as vocal as I have about wanting to get Dead Man's Wharf transitioned into a house, but it finally came to be. I think this will hit the over. I think we'll see it at that 100-minute mark a lot. I think this will kind of be like Icons wait time almost. It is, of the originals, really the only returning original. Everything else seems to be kind of its own thing at this point. But yeah, so I can definitely see it, and I think that once we get into this house, I think this is going to be, extremely scenic. I think it's going to be beautifully crafted. I think the play of sound, smell, temperature, I think it's just going to be like an overall home run, and I think people are going to want to go through this thing multiple times, especially if they're on one visit, they're going to try and do twice. If they are locals, this will be a like of Wicked Growth sense where like they need to hit it pretty much every time they go. All right, now pulling up the event. Descendants of Destruction, Sprung Tent 1.
Descendants of Destruction, Sprung Tent 1. Let's go 35 minutes.
Okay. I will take the under. I think it'll sit right around 30 minutes. Much like Hellblock Horror, those two I view in the same sense, where they're fairly vague.
I think we kind of sit in the same spot.
I'm torn. I'm on the fence. I think it's either going to be like 30 or it's going to be like 70. I'll stick with 30. Yeah, I know. I just feel like I think maybe on another event this would have risen a little bit more, but because of all the other originals are higher in my book, I'll stick with my under at 30 minutes. I think it's going to be a fun house. It's going to be interesting to see how they would transform and descend into a subway of New York. But it's interesting. I think it might catch some fire later on in the event's tenure, but I think for right now I'll sit it at that 30-minute mark on average. But like we said, this is just a complete guessing game.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, I said 35. I'm gonna say slightly under. I think it's like you said. I agree 100%. This is basically Hellblock Horror. So he's in the same boat. I think this one might be a little bit more interesting just because it's an original idea. It's not necessarily something they had to rush to get out and ready for the event. But I think, again, like I said before, I think there's just one or two houses every year that tends to suffer wait time because there's just bigger houses, bigger IPs, bigger things people want to go do and see and wait for. So because of that, you're going to have one or two houses like these two that will be, close to walk on, if not walk on. And I think again, it's good. It benefits us because it gives, someone, something quickly to run through if they happen to be near it, or if maybe they don't want to wait in a bigger long line. They have a couple houses that they can kind of just jump in line real quick and get through it within a short amount of time, and then run off, maybe do a show or get some food. It's one of those houses where it's like, it's not a house you're going to buy a beer before getting in line for, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're getting in line for Halloween, or if you're going to get in line for Dead Man's Wharf or whatever, then you're definitely going to be getting a beer before you get in line for those. So for this one, it's going to be like, you're going to kind of walk right up to the entrance, get through the house. And sometimes it's better because like, at least you can experience the house a little bit easier, and you don't have as many people pushing you through it because there's not as many people in it. So when you're alone, or not alone, but like when the line isn't as big, you can kind of cheat a little bit and slow up and take your time getting through the house. You can't stop, but at least you can like take your time going through the rooms and really take in the effects and the characters and everything else. So so it's not necessarily a bad thing that the wait times are low. I just think that it represents what people feel about it. And again, these numbers are going to kind of they're going to kind of fluctuate as the year goes around and as people start
absolutely
how they feel about the event, and you start getting instant reaction episodes from jokers like us talking about how certain houses are good, certain houses aren't, and that sort of thing. So it'll obviously change a little bit, but I think as it averages out, you're going to see this one in Hellblock kind of be like those lower averaged houses.
Yep. So like we said, those are our averages. Obviously on higher nights, we're not going to see a 30-minute, that 30-minute might bump everything. The 30s might bump to 60 and the 60s will probably bump to 90s and so on and so forth. So it really does depend on the day that you go. I think we discussed on our beginner's guide episode, typically what nights you want to try to look at and stay away from. You can always check the Express Pass. If the Express Passes is sold out for certain nights, that tends to be a busier night. If the ticket sales are sold out, obviously it's gonna be a busier night. That'll only affect you if you have the single night tickets that you won't be able to go. So if you have a frequent Fear Pass, you'll still be able to go on those quote unquote sold out nights, but it will be a lot busier. Before we wrap up, I want to read some reviews. We got some new reviews on Apple Podcasts, so we'll go through these two that we got because that'll be a new thing that we'll be doing. So
we add to the episodes.
Yep. So if you leave a review, good or bad or indifferent, we will read it. Thankfully, we got two good ones again. So I was thrown off from the title though, because this title didn't seem good, but then it was like, okay. The title. Let me preface by saying it was 5 stars. So title, pretty misleading, but still great. Pretty misleading, but still great. I thought by listening to this podcast, I would be able to solve world hunger, cure diseases, and get a free beer. Instead, it makes my day by scratching my HHN and horror itch. 10 out of 10, love it, keep it up. So when I saw the title come through, I was like, oh boy, here we go.
Let's go.
We're getting called out for not doing our homework
well,
again.
I'm sorry that we just don't have all the answers, but we try our best.
Apparently we have enough answers, so it was good. And that was from XBKSMSM. I don't know, it was a bunch of letters. Sorry. Next up from Shutter Life, another 5-star review. It says, I'm more of a liquor guy, but this is a ... And I'm sure they put more in there, but it didn't show. This podcast was a great find. I was able to binge listen to some of their episodes. These guys are really down to earth when podcasting. The podcast feels like an educated conversation about HHN, even with things that they are not excited for, but they still try to look for a positive. One of my favorite episodes was the Beginner's Guide to Halloween Horror Nights.
Wow.
As I know, right? As someone who has gone to HHN for a lot of years, I still found great insight in the episode and agreed with a lot of their tips. Looking forward to trying some of the different beers they introduce. So that's cool. We got a review on an episode we already dropped this week.
Madam.
Yeah, either or. But yeah, so if you do want us to read your reviews, just leave one for us and we will pull them up as soon as we see them come through. I think it's a fun little way to interact with people. Yeah. And it's a cool way to put some...
hit us up on the social medias too.
But make sure you leave us a review.
Yes, please. Yeah, that doesn't. We need the review, please. It's like our, it's the only way the robots know whether or not to tell people to listen.
It's a digital currency, essentially. All right, so we will be back tomorrow. And tomorrow we are starting
that, and I've already lost track of days. What day is it? Oh yeah, I don't know. I forget. Yes.
So this is Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Tomorrow we are kickstarting our 3 episodes in a row hype list. So tomorrow we are going to be discussing all the food and drink beverages, the locations that they can be found. And instead of listing every single food item, what we're going to do is we're going to read through the menus, and we are going to pick 3 or 5 items that we are excited for and kind of put those at the top of the list, because honestly, with recording 8 episodes, the food and beverage one is going to be the last episode that we've recorded chronologically. I just don't have it in me to list out 30 or 40 items and rank them, whether I think a sandwich is going to be better than a fried Oreo again. I did that last year. I don't have it in me this year. I'm sorry. We are going to discuss all of them, and I will pick like 3 or 5. I think that's more than fair.
Yeah, as long as there's no candied bacon again or whatever the hell that was last year.
I did not see that, and thank God. All right, well, until next time, which is tomorrow, this is Nick.
And this is Seamus.
Happy haunts.
Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.